Hey everyone, welcome to a special bonus episode of Locked On Lakers. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers take Bronny James at 55. Not unexpected, but still plenty to talk about. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free, never behind a paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang with over 24,000 subscribers to the channel, all of whom, Andy, are spending a lot more time talking about the 55th pick in the draft than they otherwise might. I will honestly say, if everybody's, everybody's treating this guy like it is true. We do not normally do special episodes on who the Lakers take with picks 50 and above. But this Bronny James thing is a big deal. The Lakers take him with the 55th pick in the least surprising 55th pick in NBA history. All of that said, it is still causing an enormous amount of controversy, despite the fact, Andy, that we all knew this is coming for about 2 months.
It's interesting. I don't know if it's entirely controversial in the sense that I have seen some excitement among Laker fans, if for no other reason than it is a historical chapter of sorts. It's certainly something wholly unique that's happening for, an all-time great who is playing for the Lakers right now and led the team to a championship. Like, I have seen some degree of excitement over it, but if we're being honest, I've also seen some degree of cynicism and ridicule over it as well. Look, there's no, it's interesting when we asked Mike Garcia the idea that if Bronny James had been named, I don't know,
James
Bronny, if he had been named James Bronny, do you think he would have been evaluated differently his entire time as a prospect, for better or for worse, but just differently? He agreed absolutely. Like, people would just be looking at him through totally different lenses, evaluating him through totally different lenses. And that's honestly something that all of us, and I'm including you and I, are going to have to train our minds to do if we're really going to try to land on an honest assessment of who Bronny James is as a player, because everybody is guilty of looking at this through the lens of LeBron, including, by the way, the Lakers, which we will get to it. Rob Pelinka, as is always the case, the whoever's running basketball ops will talk with the assembled media after they do the first round, the second round selections. I think he's going to have to work on the whole treating Bronny James like he's James Bronny.
He did it wrong.
Yes, he did.
We'll get to it. Before we get to this, so 55th pick, it's also important, I think, to understand what theoretically the Lakers or any team was drafting when they drafted Bronny. They are not drafting a 20-point-a-game guy. They're not he was drafted based on athleticism and defensive ability, first and foremost. Those are his calling cards. It is notoriously difficult to project defensive ability and how that fits into a rotation. He is undoubtedly undersized. He's also very strong, and he's a very good athlete. And so, I think he was drafted at an appropriate time in the draft. I think there are a lot of teams that didn't take him earlier. I'm not talking earlier like 31 or 26, but I think a lot of teams in the 40s or early 50s that might have taken a flyer on him didn't, because they didn't want to piss off Rich Paul. I mean, I think that's part of it. Like, it's just not worth it. They had done this, they didn't want to risk their second round pick going to Australia for a year and all these other threats because it's not worth it. And you're like, did Bronny James have leverage in this process that second round picks typically don't have to try to guide his way to a preferred destination? Yes, of course he did. Is what Bronny James did in in broad terms unusual. It is not. When you get into the second round, particularly, it is very common for agents, to try to game the setup.
This is how Austin Reeves ended up a Laker.
Correct. To say, do not draft me, try to avoid it, try to get your guy into free agency, try to avoid certain outcomes, especially when you're going to be drafted in the second round. You want the outcome that's going to be best for you. And, in many ways, I know many people are deeply cynical about this, and we'll talk about it. There are a lot of advantages to Bronny being in LA versus, say, Washington, or things like that.
I don't know if we can say that this is what is best for Bronny. I think you can see pros to it, but you can also see cons to it. And I think if for no other reason, you have to be open to the idea that there could be cons, because Bronny James, on the few occasions that he has spoken with the media, in my opinion, in my read on it, and I say this as somebody who's never met Bronny and respects the idea that he has been put in a difficult position of being a young guy in a very public setting who was behind the 8 ball in his basketball journey because of the cardiac situation that thankfully seems to be behind him. But based on what we have seen, he has outwardly expressed less obvious enthusiasm about the father-son team-up thing than LeBron had at the point when LeBron was really talking about this as something that it was very clear he wanted to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that LeBron is forcing this on his son? No, if for no other reason than we don't have enough information to definitively say that. But I think it is also jumping to conclusions that this is definitely the thing that Bronny wanted, or at the very least, that being in this situation with the Lakers, with the spotlight that's already there anyway, and the scrutiny he was going to face regardless, I don't know if this is the best situation for his development or for him.
Okay. Let's take a quick break and then get back, because I think really so much of this is a Rorschach test on what you feel about LeBron, what you feel about Rich Paul, what you feel about the leverage that LeBron is or is not exerting over the organization, and whether or not it's a good sign or not. It's less about the value of the 55th pick. So let's get into that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. And when I was about 12 years old, the Police, they were on the Synchronicity Tour, and it was a very, very difficult ticket to get. They were just the biggest band in the world, and I couldn't get seats, but I was like, no big deal. I'll go to the next Police tour. There was no next Police tour. It broke up. And I learned after that experience, when it comes to a concert or any live event you want to see, don't ever miss out. Seize the day. And that's why I love Game Time. It's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy shows and theater near you. And with killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun. The Game Time guarantee means you always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. And that's why they are the fastest growing ticketing app in the country. Snag the tickets without the stress using Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Okay, so we still want to make sure we leave a little bit of time to talk about how Pelinka started his press conference today. But to this point, I think this is the most controversial thing about the Bronny thing. And our friend Darius Soriano tweeted out, and I agree with him 100%, a lot of projection going on here. I think a lot of people are just kind of projecting what they feel about LeBron, what they feel about Rich Paul, what they might feel about the Lakers. I mean, I saw somebody say, like, basically saying that, like, the Lakers are doing things, they've given over the keys in ways they never would have for Kobe, like, people rolling over in their graves. And I am 100% confident that if Kobe had a son who was draft eligible while Kobe was still playing, the Lakers would have drafted that kid.
Let me tell you guys,
0% chance they wouldn't have done it.
If you think LeBron has leverage over the Lakers, folks,
Right.
you ain't seen Jack bleep.
They would have drafted Kobe's son.
Kobe's leverage over the organization makes LeBron's look laughable.
Right.
It makes it look barely more than your and mine.
Let's just set that aside for a minute. But
yes.
I think is it possible? Of course, it's possible that Bronny is a hostage in this situation, is being dragged along by the wishes and ambitions of his father, and Rich Paul manipulating all these things. And the Lakers just took him. Did the Lakers take him to ironclad guarantee that LeBron James would stay after opting out of his contract? I think today or tomorrow or Friday, I believe it is. Probably. I'm sure that played into it. And you know what? That's a smart use of the 55th pick to make sure your star doesn't walk. But I'll say this, in the absence of evidence, and Bronny, you are correct, has been very low key talking about these things. And he has said most of the time when he talks about it that he wants to be judged on his own as a basketball player. Almost anywhere he was going to go, there are maybe some exceptions where he could have just sort of played in anonymity, relative anonymity. He goes to other places. It's because they're trying to lure his dad there, to come, demand a trade, whatever it might be. Without evidence to the contrary, I am just unwilling to go to a place where I say that LeBron James, who is by all accounts a devoted and dedicated father who loves his children deeply, and Rich Paul, who has known Bronny James since birth, are acting in a way that is contrary to what both they believe are Bronny's best interests and what Bronny, to the extent that any 18-year-old or 19, what is he, 19 or 20?
I believe he's 19.
19-year-old, this is why they hire agents. I fully believe that Rich Paul, were he to believe like this was a terrible idea for Bronny, would tell that to LeBron. And I think if Bron thought it was a bad idea for his son, he would not, he would tell the Lakers to send him somewhere else. In the absence of evidence to the contrary, I think it is irresponsible to, run with this idea that he's some sort of hostage. That's all I have to say about that. I mean, if you want to talk about that or how Pelinka started his press conference today,
I don't
wrong way.
I don't disagree with you. The idea that he's being held hostage in this is too strong. That being said, if Bronny's wishes were truly to prove himself on his own merits, if I were Rich Paul, unless he really has a lot of specific apprehensions about other franchises around the league, I think it sets up Bronny better to prove himself as his own guy, to not have it look like he was drafted in any way as a favor to his father. Like, that sets it up.
It's reasonable.
It is inarguable that sets it up better.
There's no question. But there are, like I said, I think there are, and we can get deeper into this because I want to get into the.
That's what I'm about to set up.
Yeah.
If the Lakers, I think, want to help Bronny in this pursuit of being seen as his own person, they need to be more mindful of this. And I say this because Rob Pelinka, in starting out his address to the media, I mean, this was literally his opening remarks. So this was not set up off a question, anything like that. Nope. His opening remarks began talking about the potential historical significance of this type of father-son duo that, by the way, isn't at this point guaranteed, which Rob acknowledged. LeBron may still opt out. We want to respect his space. Then began talking about Bronny James as a player and a person. To me, the obvious thing to do in that situation is you begin talking about Bronny James, the player and the person, then get to the potential historical significance, but only really, if I was doing this, if asked, as opposed to
I agree with you,
bringing this up
because
proactively on your own.
They're not mutually exclusive. Would you agree? Like, the historical nature of it, the cool factor of this is cool. It's
sure.
Literally, and it's probably really cool for both of them.
I hope Bronny, it is.
Like most young players, has an incredible opportunity to learn by practicing and playing with LeBron. But like to lump them together, Andy, I agree with you, is a mistake. And to put the history and the cool factor first, it is a massive unforced error by Pelinka.
Right. And,
it makes him look like a carnival novelty show. Well, he doesn't need to be.
Furthering that, Pelinka was asked about how the Lakers handle the additional media attention, said, quote, "The biggest moments in sports happen with the Lakers, and that's how we're built, and we're excited to see this story unfold." Again, he's not a carnival attraction, Bronny James. Like, they need to be conscious of this again, because at least and I don't know Bronny James, and I'm not going to tell LeBron how to dad, but from the outside looking in, from the thing based purely on the things I have heard Bronny say, this feels like the best way to give Bronny what he seems like he wants.
I don't know if what he's saying is a reflect. I think what he said was so basic and reserved and quiet, in my opinion, that I think it is reading too much into it to decide that it is or is not in line with what he wants or doesn't want. So I just disagree with you a little bit about that. But the correct answer there is Bronny James. Like when Pelinka's asked about it, Bronny James is the 55th pick in the draft. At some point, we hope that he and his dad are probably going to play together, but we have a lot of space between now and then.
Yes.
And when the moment comes, obviously we'll treat it well, and we'll treat it with the importance it deserves. And but he's the 55th pick in the draft, and he's got a lot of work to do before he can get on an NBA floor. That's the correct answer to the question.
I just would like to see a conscious effort to treat Bronny James as his own person. And that's going to take conscious awareness by everybody.
100%.
I agree with you. It is
that part. I agree with you 100%.
This is for nothing else, happy for LeBron, because despite what he may put out there, it's clearly something that he wants, because otherwise, I promise you, this would not be happening. So congratulations to him.
Locked on Lakers on you. A little bit more of this on Friday's episode, but we spent Friday's episode is devoted to a scouting report on Dylan Connect. Reached out to Rick Butler, who covered him for Rocky Top Insider down in Tennessee. So great stuff coming up Friday on Dylan Connect and a little bit on Bronny. We will be back getting everybody ready for free agency on Monday too. So check out Friday. Be ready for more action on Monday. We'll see everybody next time.